everybody, welcome to this Tuesday night CPS Victims Fighting. I'm your host, CPS Punisher. And over here to our right, we have the chat room. I will get up here. My camera's falling down, so I got to move this for us. All right, to the right over there, we got the chat room. It is Tuesday evening, and we just got some questions and answers for you guys tonight. Let's do some Q&A. I was thinking, Vinny, do a little Q&A. Maybe a couple of TikToks. Let's see what else is going on in the world. But Vinny, why don't you come on out, buddy? While I fix this camera here.
Evening, everybody.
All right. I don't know what happened to my camera height here, but it's way off. I guess it was off the last show, too. I didn't even notice. Oh, for gosh sakes. All right. I think we should be right there. We got a new chair, Vinny, so I got to adjust to the chair height, I guess.
You got a new chair?
Well, not a new one, a new old chair. My other one, my daughter got me so damn comfortable. And we all know that I already have a problem with falling asleep when I sit down.
Yeah.
So I opted out to a different size chair, less comfortable one to do the show. So maybe I won't have the urges on top of the narcolepsy.
There's a
sleep.
Brooke!
Yeah. Brooke's in the house. What's up, Brooke?
Brooke, you need to come on.
Yeah, Brooke, get in the show with us.
Mainly seen.
Slap the link right up there for her.
Yeah, I will. I'm doing it now. I'm getting ready to grab it.
All right, Brooke, I'm so happy that you're messaging here, not somewhere else.
Brooke, come on. I just sent the link in the chat.
Let's hear what old Brookie has to say.
Yellow Subaru Moon Rocks.
Yes, at least we're not driving and sleeping. At least I don't do that. Correct. Actually, that's the one thing that I can do that I don't, that when I sit down, that I don't fall asleep is driving. Herbert's on the outside. Where's he?
He just tried to come in and then he popped out real fast. I don't know what happened to him.
Oh. Yep. Benny, all kinds of things are happening, huh?
Yeah.
With child protective stuff. This is crazy.
Yep.
You know what? I just hope that we're not getting drug into some sort of slaughter. You know? Like, I hope that they're not pulling all of us in to get to slaughter us all, man.
Kind of makes you wonder, huh?
Yeah. All right, Brooke, 5 minutes. We're waiting. Counting is on. Brooke will be here in 5 minutes.
You gotta make sure she got her makeup on and whatnot.
You definitely want indica, right?
Right, Brooke?
Yeah,
you gotta make sure you look like a woman.
Vinny did his earlier, so you get on and get yours in too.
Don't touch it. Hurts.
So
from yesterday.
Herbert, I don't know why Herbert's not in here.
All right.
You all right, Herbert?
Oh.
Well, let's see here. Let's start telling these people about some stuff.
Yeah, we got to show them what's going on around.
Garlic wedding.
Here.
Oreo. Pineapple Kush. And Jelly Bar. Those are their indicas.
Jelly Bar sounds good.
That's what I got him.
Let's see here.
She admitted it. She had to put her face on. Ha 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 ha! I knew it. Brooke, we don't care what you look like, darling. You're the same with your makeup on, and you're the same with your makeup off. It doesn't matter. You're still Brooke.
Look at this, Vinny.
Grape pie. OG. Grape pie and OG for the.
And this afternoon in Lansing White. Well, the CPS
permanent marker is 34% THC.
Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Peyton Marshall.
And I'm Gina Marini. Our top story tonight, after Jeannie Whitefeather testified in her own defense yesterday, her husband, Donald Lance, took the stand today in his own defense. All of this in the couple's ongoing human trafficking and child abuse trial stemming from the discovery of their adopted teens locked in a shed in Sissonville.
That's right, and Anna Saunders is live outside the courthouse. Anna, you've done such a great job covering the details of this case. Talk to me, what did Lance have to say, and were there any differences or really any similarities with what he testified compared to what Whitefeather testified in those days prior?
Well, Lance came to the stand with a very similar message as Whitefeather, that they were two overwhelmed adoptive parents frustrated with their living situation, especially in Sissonville. He, too, denied all of the allegations. Now, he said the source of their frustration was mainly the 14-year-old boy who had several mental health issues and was having intense episodes. He said they were unable to get him a mental health hospital bed, both in Washington, where they lived before, and in Sissonville. Now, we watched video from Whitefeather's phone earlier in the trial that appeared to show Lance hitting the teen boy with a PVC pipe in Washington. He said he never hit him and denied abuse of any of the 5 adopted kids. He also said he never used any racial language and is not a racist. He said that the kids ate all kinds of food, not just peanut butter sandwiches like the kids testified. He also was asked about the shed in Sissonville because he was the one who put the locks on it. He testified that the door locked on both sides and could lock them in to keep the teen boy from having an episode and running away, but that the teen girl could let them out if needed. He said that there were 4 keys, including one in the shed that the oldest teen girl knew about. She testified last week that she didn't know about a key. Now, throughout the trial, we've seen text messages between Lance and Whitefeather where they seem to mock their children, call them monkeys, and discuss physical punishments. In those texts, they often refer to the 14-year-old as PB, which Lance said stands for P-boy. This is what Lance had to say about that.
And when, you know, after the 100th time that your 10 to 13-year-old kid, you know, wets his pants, you know, it gets a little bit frustrating because every time it takes time, you have to get him cleaned up, change his clothes, or get his clothes changed, and it gets frustrating.
Now, Lance also talked about the forced labor allegations. He was asked if he made the kids do chores for hours at a time. He said not without a break, and that he always did the chores with them and that they were good for the kids to teach them responsibility. He also said the kids got allowances. Now, the defense is still presenting its case. Lance is still on the stand. He still has to go through cross-examination from the prosecutor, so we are expecting to start back up again tomorrow morning. Live here in Charleston, Anna Saunders, Eyewitness News.
What do you think of that, Benny?
Wow. Yeah, that's the
As we
case
know,
out
the
of
defense
Oklahoma,
closed
right?
to resting its case, and now 2-week trial of Jeannie Whitefeather and Donald Lance.
Now, this is the couple accused of human trafficking and child abuse after their adopted teens were found locked in a shed in Sissonville. Anna Saunders is live now outside of the courthouse. And Anna, what new details have you learned? I know that mental health has been a topic of conversation throughout this trial.
You're right, and that was the focus of the testimony this afternoon. Now, the defense has not officially rested its case yet, but indicated that the witness we heard from tonight would be the last one on their list, as this trial will now head into week 3 on Monday. Now, this afternoon, the jury heard from forensic psychologist Dr. Timothy Czar, who looked through CPS and medical records from Washington State for the children. When questioned by Whitefeather's defense attorney, Mark Plants, he detailed the mental health conditions that the 14-year-old boy had, which included PTSD and trauma from previous physical and sexual abuse in the biological home and reactive detachment disorder, along with documented episodes of psychosis. He also talked about some of the conditions the other kids had, which included fetal alcohol syndrome and PTSD. This is what the defense has used to say that the 2 adoptive parents were ill-equipped to deal with all of this and tried to get help.
Children, and so you may do things that to the outside to us look like dumb things to do, but you're trying to do the best you can, and you try to reach out to your community, your mental health professionals, and sometimes you get help, and sometimes because of lack of services, lack of beds, lack of money, you may not always get those services. I do know.
However, when cross-examined using those same CPS records, Assistant Prosecutor Chris Kavranyak points out that there were multiple visits from the 14-year-old boy to the hospital during their time in Washington, visits where he disclosed to workers that he did not want to go home because he was always locked away in his room, forced to use the bathroom and a bucket and eat peanut butter sandwiches. He also disclosed to the workers that he and his siblings were being abused at home. Kavranyak read part of the record that said that there were some concerns from law enforcement and CPS that the kids were being neglected and exploited for the adoption payments they were getting. There was also concern that the 14-year-old was being targeted and that the others were being manipulated by Whitefeather to be afraid of him. The 6-month CPS and law enforcement investigation in Washington was closed just weeks before they moved to Sissonville, claiming all of the allegations were unfounded. Now, as I mentioned earlier, what was originally estimated to be a 2-week trial will now head into that 3rd week starting Monday. Live here in Charleston, Anna Saunders, Eyewitness News.
Hold on, there's more.
Fucking wow.
Well, the state and defense have now officially rested their cases in the now nearly 3-week trial for Jeannie Whitefeather and Donald Lance.
Now, these are the adoptive parents who were charged with human trafficking and child abuse after their adopted teens were found locked in a shed in Sissonville in 2023. And Anna Saunders is live in Charleston. And Anna, now that both sides have rested, what happens next?
Well, Gina, Peyton, several things have to happen before the jury can start deliberating. Now, an important thing to keep in mind that this is the first time in state history that the charge of human trafficking has been charged at the state circuit court level. This is usually something that's taken up in federal court. So, of course, with these unique charges and this unique circumstance, jury instructions took up the whole afternoon as both sides debated what guidance they want to send the jury back with, especially when it comes to those human trafficking and forced labor charges. Before that, we heard from the final witness in this case, forensic psychologist Dr. David Clayman, who was called by prosecutors. He testified that even though the kids came to Whitefeather and Lance with challenges from trauma in their biological home, he said the alleged treatment from Lance and Whitefeather, including the isolation, the depriving, the manipulation, only made matters worse, especially for the teen boy who had several mental health disorders. Dr. Clayman testified there would likely have to be external stressors working in the teen boy's life for his condition to worsen. And he says the only thing he can think of would be his living situation with Lance and Whitefeather.
Those would be the kinds of things with a person who's fragile already that could push him over the edge.
Now, he was the final witness called in this case, and then after settling the instructions for the jury tomorrow morning, Judge Mary Claire Akers says she will then present those instructions to the jury, and then after that, we'll get closing arguments from both sides, and then the jury is expected to start deliberating. Gina, Peyton, back to you all.
Doing a great job just providing those instant updates for us all day from the courtroom through Twitter. And I know that you had mentioned there that Dr. Clayman said that things got, quote, crumbly when referencing to that move that you just mentioned to Washington. Was there anything new that stuck out today that the doctor mentioned when looking at just the contents of the file, when looking at the contents of those photos?
Well, one thing that really stuck out to me is that we've done a lot of delving into the past, a lot of that into their Washington past. But one thing he said that stuck out to me was that right now, where the kids are living in the new homes, they're doing much better than they ever have before, that they've made significant improvements. And that's something that really stuck out to me because we have heard so much about the past. It was interesting to hear about how they're doing now. Live here in Charleston, Anna Saunders, Eyewitness News.
Closing arguments.
After days of grueling testimony, the jury in the human trafficking and child abuse case out of Kanawha County, they're hearing closing arguments.
Yeah, Jeannie Whitefeather and Donald Lance are facing decades in prison if the jury finds them guilty of charges that include human rights violations because of their race and using the 4 adopted children in forced labor. Prosecutors summarized the 2 weeks of witnesses, asking the jury to find Whitefeather guilty of all 19 counts against her. Lance is facing 16 counts. Now, each side has been given an hour for closings, and defense attorneys disputing the state's claims that the 4 children were targeted, abused, and forced to do labor because they were black. They told the jury the facts of the case don't match up to the law. They adamantly deny the couple was racist, but said they were dealing with children who had mental illness as best they could with the lack of help from the state.
All of this bad conduct that we've been hearing for 2 weeks has to be because of their race. Because of poor parenting or mental illness issues or handling mental issues poorly. It has to be because of the race. Now again, not saying we're not down to counts 13 and 19 yet, but that's what you have to believe beyond a reasonable doubt.
I want to remind you, a defendant Whitefeather and defendant Lance made a bet when they chose to move to Sissonville, West Virginia. They bet that people of West Virginia would not care if they mistreated their black children right out in front of the world. I ask you to prove them wrong.
Now, the jury will begin deliberations first thing tomorrow morning. Thanks so much for watching. Here's another video from Eyewitness News. Just click right here to subscribe to our channel and make sure you hit that bell notification to get the very latest.
Wait. Oh, wait, here we go. There's another one. Here we go. There's one more.
We, the jury, find the defendant Jeannie K. Whitefeather guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of human trafficking of a minor child. We, the jury, find the defendant Donald Ray Lance guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of human trafficking of a minor child.
Well, first tonight, a historic verdict after a more than 2-week-long trial. The couple accused of forced labor and child abuse of their adopted black children has now learned their fate from a jury.
Now, this was a split verdict, meaning it was not a straight guilty or not guilty for both of the defendants, Donald Lance and his wife, Jeannie Whitefeather.
Yeah, let's take a look at really all of those counts. So what we know, Whitefeather was found guilty of all 19 counts against her. You can see them right here on your screen: human trafficking, civil rights violation, forced labor. Wow. The jury did find that Lance was not guilty of 4 civil rights violations that they deemed Whitefeather was guilty of. And when it came to child abuse, there were more charges for Whitefeather because of an incident involving spraying the adopted children with bear spray, which Lance was not charged with.
Anna Saunders has been following this case for us all along. She has reaction tonight from attorneys on both sides on this historic trial and verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant Jeannie K. Whitefeather guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of human trafficking. We, the jury, find the defendant Donald Ray Lance guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of human trafficking.
For the first time in West Virginia history, human trafficking charges and now convictions handed down to both Jeannie Whitefeather and Donald Lance. Kanawha County Assistant Prosecutors Chris Kravaniak and Madison Tugg, who worked this case, say this is something that has never happened before at the state level.
First time the human trafficking statutes have been charged in West Virginia, we believe, and the civil rights violations aren't charged very often in West Virginia. They're tough cases to prove, and we appreciate the help we got from everybody on the team and also the office.
Whitefeather and Lance not visibly showing much emotion in the courtroom as prosecutors say Whitefeather now faces up to 215 years in prison. Lance looking at a max of 140.
I think they're upset, right? I mean, but they understand that that the jury heard all the evidence. I think it's fair to say they are upset. But they look forward to continuing with the criminal process. There's a sentencing, there's an appeal process that they look forward to. And like I said, it's understandable that they're upset, but they also understand that, they had their day in court.
This case all stemming from the October 2023 discovery of 2 of their adopted black teens locked in a shed in Sissonville, about 5 months after they moved here from Washington State. Investigators later uncovered more evidence, including videos, pictures, text messages, that the jury got to see that it was not just the teens, but also their adopted 11-year-old son and 9-year-old daughter victimized too. The home surveillance videos from cameras Whitefeather and Lance kept on the kids, showing the 5 days leading up to the shed rescue, where the kids would be forced to stand all day, sleep on the floor, take no baths, only allowed to eat peanut butter sandwiches. 2 months before they were locked away, they could be seen by neighbors working and standing in the yard at all hours. Once the neighbors started sounding the alarm, the kids spent most of their time inside, too, in the shed. But perhaps the most compelling part of the trial was when 3 of the children victims testified in this case against Whitefeather and Lance, detailing years of abuse, neglect, racial comments, and isolation.
Really hard for an adult to take the stand and testify against a stranger. I can't imagine the courage it took for a child to take the stand and testify against someone who, at one point in their life, they considered a parent.
In a rare move, both Whitefeather and Lance testified in their own defenses in this case, denying the allegations against them. But for the jury, this was not enough, as they found Whitefeather guilty on all of her charges and Lance found guilty on all of his except for the civil rights violations.
When Mr. Lance testified, he communicated through his verbal and his nonverbal cues that it made clear to the jury that he had a good relationship with the children, and race never really came in his mind when making any decisions.
The jury deliberated for 8 hours on Wednesday after sitting through more than 2 weeks of trial and thousands of files of evidence, ultimately returning what the prosecution was seeking: justice for the kids.
These cases mean a lot to us. We take a lot of this personally. You know, this is our community, and these are the children of our community. And so if we're not going to fight for them, then who will?
The 2 will be sentenced by Judge Mary Claire Akers in March. In Kanawha County, Anna Saunders, Eyewitness News.
Here's the thing. They put them there. CPS put them kids in that position.
Convictions for Jeannie Whitefeather and Donald Lance mark a major milestone in West Virginia. Now, the couple looking at decades of prison time after their adopted black children were found locked in a shed in Sissonville, later uncovering years of abuse, neglect, and forced labor.
Yeah, this was actually the first time the state history for those charges were brought forward at the state level, let alone convicted. Anna Saunders sat down with a member of the state task force who says this was a significant step in statewide fight against human trafficking.
Even before the guilty verdicts were read for Jeannie Whitefeather and Donald Lance.
Guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of human trafficking.
The charges alone were historic. Dr. Patrick Kerr, a chief psychologist with CAMC and a member of the state's human trafficking task force, echoing what prosecutors have said all along, that this is the first time human trafficking has been charged at the state level.
That's a significant milestone because it recognizes that human trafficking can take multiple forms and can be prosecuted at the state level. So it doesn't always require the involvement of federal law enforcement or federal prosecution.
Human trafficking was added to state code in West Virginia in 2012. Back then, it required that at least 2 people had to be trafficked within a 1-year period for it to apply. Kirsch says it was then amended in 2017 to better reflect federal law. So what Lance and Whitefeather were convicted of has only been around for 8 years.
Human trafficking is the compulsion of labor against one's will, any form of labor, through force, fraud, or coercion. And I think that's something that is often misunderstood about human trafficking. People don't have to be chained up, tied up, physically restrained for a case of human trafficking to be human trafficking.
Kerr says this case in particular has the ability to show the rest of the state what's possible and how it can be applied.
I think this is a case that really highlights
it's gonna be
that labor
applied.
trafficking is something we absolutely need to be paying attention to because of how
Now that
prevalent
everyone
it is,
sees
and
it,
sometimes
yeah.
it flies under the radar, often because of the disproportionate focus on
Ain't gonna
sex
fly
trafficking.
under the radar.
Kerr
dude.
applauds not only the police
anymore.
and prosecutors, but the jury for being presented with the evidence and with this definition and applying it for the first time in the state.
We don't often hear about human trafficking cases. Juries are not necessarily tuned in to that the way that they may be to other cases and other types of charges. So it was really effective communication on the prosecutor's part. And the jurors were willing to hear what evidence was being presented, take that in, and apply the relevant human trafficking laws to that as well. So I commend them for their work as well.
And as Human Trafficking Awareness Month closes out today, Kerr also commending the neighbors who saw kids working in the yard in Sissonville and eventually saw them get locked away and called it in.
So public awareness campaigns work, and people who are concerned about their fellow citizens, especially those who are more vulnerable, are going to be a really important piece of this. If you see something, say something.
In Kanawha County, Anna Saunders, Eyewitness News.
All right, one more here. That's a good one, eh? Very good. One more.
Darren, Brooke wants you to send her the link.
And welcome back here to Arc Appalachia. I have with me Eyewitness News reporter Anna Saunders joining me to talk about the reporting that she's done over the last 3 weeks on the Kanawha County trial of Jeannie Whitefeather and Donald Lance. Anna, this has been quite the trial. I mean, you were on this thing from the very beginning in the courtroom every single day. Ended up making history in the state of West Virginia, the way that this all played out. What was it like for you in the courtroom each day for this?
Well, I think, in this business, we always think that we have seen and done it all, and then something comes around and proves otherwise, and this was one of those things for me. I think, I've covered trials before, but this, for a trial to go almost 3 weeks is almost unheard of. It's definitely happened before, but it's very, very unusual. A lot of unusual things happened in this trial. The evidence, there was so much evidence that they presented. And then also the thing to think about, the defendants took the stand. That's not something I don't think I've ever seen in a trial. It's usually not recommended. Both of them took the stand. We heard from 3 of the victims in this case. That's unusual. And that was probably one of the most powerful moments in the trial. So just a lot of moments, I think, that really define this as a historical trial.
For sure. And so much emotional weight with this trial. I mean, just the subject matter involving, kids, being mistreated and just all of this coming about. I mean, talk about just like what this was like for you. And obviously, like when you're in this courtroom with the same people for weeks on end, you kind of, I'm sure, build some bonds there. You kind of see that emotion as it takes forth. I mean, I'm sure it's had really an impact on you.
And I think the timing of it all was interesting because we saw the videos, right? Whitefeather and Lance kept surveillance footage on these children. So we saw these videos play out in the courtroom before we heard from them. So we saw them so much, we've heard so much about them, and then we heard from them. And I think just the gravity of that and how chilling that was, that will, stick with me forever, especially, watching days and days and days of that footage, because we watched the 5 days of camera footage of them up until they were rescued from the Sissonville shed. So we watched their day-to-day life. It was sped up video, but we spent, I think, about 2 days in the courtroom going over that. So seeing that over and over again, and those were brought up again really throughout the trial, and then hearing from those kids describing what that was like. I mean, that was something that I'll never forget.
How different is it covering a trial and being in something for the long run like this, as opposed to you do a lot of day-turn stories, as well as, more, long form pieces, but for you to be hyper fixated on this, what was that like?
I think there's one aspect of it where it's like, at least I know I get up every day and I know exactly what I'm going to be doing, and I know who I'm going to be seeing and what I'm going to be dealing with. But the other side of it, it can be taxing. It can be tiring when you're hearing about the same thing over and over and over again. So you just, you think about the preparation that went into this, how much the prosecutors have been thinking about this, how much the police officers involved, everyone who testified, how
Did
much
she get it?
preparation went into a trial like this. That's really what I've been thinking about
Fear
hearing all
yet.
this.
Yeah, and obviously, like when you cover anything, our job here as journalists is you got to remain unbiased, right? And so, and for you in court, you have the prosecution and the defense, and so talk about too, like for maybe people at home that aren't aware, it's like, our job is to just report what's going on. So therefore, you're just kind of listening to everything. You're conveying everything to us back here as we're keeping up to date. I'm sure that was obviously difficult to maintain for the long point as well.
Yeah, and I think the important thing with that is you have to be mindful of the language you're using, right? At this point, when they're in trial, they are still presumed not guilty. And so when you're talking about that, you have to say that this is what they're accused of. This is what this person said. Attribute everything that's said. Say this is what we watched in court. Not try to attach any kind of opinions on it. Not try to put blame anywhere. Just say, really recap what happened. And I think that's sometimes difficult, right? You want to think about, okay, I want to cover everything, but really I just have to lay out and make it clear to people what happened in there, because not everybody can go watch a trial, but I want to make sure everybody knows what's going on in the courthouse and what's happening over there. And then, of course, when they're convicted, you can kind of change it up and say they have been found guilty. They have done, the jury has found that they have done this. So I think that, you have to just keep in mind what you're saying and what you're conveying to people. And with this, with the kids involved, that was the thing to think about too. We couldn't use their names, we couldn't film them. So that was something that we always had to be cognizant of and mindful of throughout the trial.
Yeah, that was a very active conversation in the newsroom. Whenever you were in the courtroom, we were back here saying, okay, these kids' faces cannot be shown, so we had to use a lot of blurring technology on our editors, to make sure we don't show their faces, make sure their names weren't ever said or recordings of their names weren't ever heard. So a lot of work behind the scenes to make sure we got that right. And looking ahead, I mean, what does this mean, for this situation moving forward? Obviously, like this case making history in Kanawha County and in West Virginia.
And one thing I wanted to say about that, this is the first time in state history where human trafficking was first charged. So just the charge alone was historical. And then to get a conviction, I mean, that is such a big deal. This is usually something that's handled at the federal level. And so to get something like this in circuit court, that's what made this trial so historic, because this law was just passed, human trafficking at the state level, in 2012. It was edited in 2017 to make it a little bit of a stronger law. So this is the one that really applied to White Feather and Lance. Had it not been edited in 2017, they probably never would have been charged with human trafficking. So this is the first time that this was ever first charged. And then, of course, the jury found that they were guilty of human trafficking.
Wow. Yeah, big case there for sure in the state and in the area as well. So what are you working on today? Because I think finally you have something new that you're able to kind of focus your attention on, at least for the time being.
So I've been back on some.
All right. Well, there we go. Yeah, there's Johnny.
Hello.
What's happening, brother?
Wow.
What did you think about all that?
Well, a couple things. First off, why is CPS in the state of West Virginia not being charged with co-conspiracy to commit human trafficking? Would be my first point, because those children would have never been there had it not been for CPS in West Virginia. I believe it warrants a very deep investigation into the Department of Children and Family Services in West Virginia. The second thing I want to probably say, that from what I can see from that report, I'm not firsthand, but one, if you can tell, the investigation was done properly by somebody that noticed something that was very severe, not I think I should, I could. I saw them lock them up in a place.
Right.
Firsthand experience, enough to get a warrant. They didn't even go in with that. They, if you listen to the testimony and everything else, they watched them for over a week with a proper warrant to surveil, okay, or a court order allowing them permission. A judge has to sign off on that to monitor you, your incoming calls and everything else. And that wasn't including, once they got in the house, there was enough probable cause to enter the house that they found out there was a closed circuit TV system, a security system, camera system, even putting them in more trouble. But once again, I would have to say to law enforcement, it sounds like it was The investigation was handled properly with law enforcement. And if we'll notice here, if they truly took and followed their state code, this is a crime involving children. CPS should have been called according to what the state of West Virginia. So my props to that sheriff's office that disregarded that order, seeing the fact that CPS and finding out under investigation, they're the one that caused this. I noticed they mentioned nothing about CPS coming in the second half, other than CPS was questioned to find out when the last time they were out there and what was done and this and that. The judge facilitated this. I mean, honestly, when this child grows up, I'm going to say this, and you can hand him a copy of what I'm saying here right now. So, those kids, you got one hell of a lawsuit against your state judicial system for what they've done to you, placing you in that home, as well as state CPS. You have one hell of a lawsuit because they put you in imminent danger and they fucking did nothing. They were the cause of more problems on top of, from what we know from the story that was told us, that the parents did abuse him. In other words, there was a conviction in there. That I would assume for them to say those type of words, but then taking them out of that right into a predator's home that's going to do maybe not sexual, but actually work, do the things they did to these children. I mean, what kind of damn hell? And these are, and let me emphasize, this isn't third world fucking kids, man. These are fucking Americans. Protected by the Constitution, are they not? I guess fucking not, West Virginia. You done fucked up. And you just exposed your whole CPS system to now the world. Who put them in harm's way? CPS. They were foster kids. Falls under the Department of Health and Human Services, Family and Child Services Division for that state. Who's responsible?
Wait. So I just seen this posted out just a minute ago. Breaking: Pam Bondi just declared that restricting, shielding administrative law judges from removal of unconstitutional and will no longer defend them in court. Right there, guys. Black and white with her picture.
And the other thing, I don't know if you guys caught the executive order that the president signed today. And some of the topics that were covered, guys, we may be looking at a 51st state.
I don't know about that. Do you believe that?
I mean, seems like, I don't know, solidifying some things, calling out both Maine. Washington now has this breaking on all that other stuff. I'm waiting for something from Michigan, which is another high traveled point. I think Canadians are over it. I think if there's a possibility of it, a lot have said they would, but once again, that's going to be part of their vote. We're going to have to look at our treaties and everything else. A lot was hinted at, including this gold card program that he talked about for green cards, like a gold green card. And that's for obviously people that are vetted, but they're talking about, I think it was something like $5 million to get this card.
What?
Enticing business owners and smart people and everything else. It's still a green card. The only difference is there's the idea is for them to bring business and other things and technologies here and be profitable at less taxes and quite a few other things. But it's a very similar program that Canada actually has already in place that was enticing companies to come there and people to bring their ideas and their wealth here to this country. Canada's done it. I think it's one of the things that they take and they're looking to adapt and do this thing and kind of clean it up, because you got to remember a lot of the people that were immigrants were people that didn't have a lot. So this is a way to really look at the demographics, I guess you could say, in a way of even bringing people that are extremely wealthy into our country. Once again, they did verify that, hey, we're going to definitely vet them, especially from certain countries or this and that. But the idea is we want those people to bring jobs. We want them to bring innovation. It's kind of like, the Tony Stark's, big thing on the Avengers of bring all your science shit to me and I'll try and sponsor it. And that's basically what it was we want more. We're behind in technology. This country used to be great in innovative design and advancements and everything else. And, now you're calling out the courts. He's found the evil in the court system. He's trying to root this stuff out. Administrative judges, all the bullshit they're doing. Why? Once these judges realize they've lost jurisdiction where there's a constitutional right issue, it is the duty of the judge and or magistrate to remove themselves from the case and notify all parties that this has to change jurisdiction because the court can no longer hear it. This is one of the things your family court judges are not doing. But at any time during your case, you say there is a constitutional rights violation, such as a Fourth Amendment rights violation by your CPS worker, your case is not supposed to go forward anymore because of what has been revealed during the course of the case. The judge or magistrate has now lost jurisdiction because they can't hear or rule on anything to do with constitutional rights issues. That is only found in a federal courtroom. So then you would have a change of jurisdiction, which everybody in the courtroom, probably no in the courtroom, has a federal fucking license to even file it. There's the problem with the Bar Association that has stacked in every single state against you to keep you trapped. They're all involved in this. Why? As soon as you disclosed to your attorney there was a Fourth Amendment right, they should have never took the job if they don't have a federal license. There's a big red flag. Well, we'll just deal with the case just in front. It's just family court. It's not just family court. The Constitution applies. So if I have a constitutional rights violation, I have to notify the court that there is that, which the court is then supposed to take, which is your state court, family court, and all of it. They're not supposed to continue. If they continue, it's a violation of their oath to uphold the Constitution by not changing or notifying everyone in the case they have lost jurisdiction because you spoke of a constitutional rights matter. And then done. That's why I keep telling people you're fighting in the wrong court. When you have that, you just notified them. That means we're doing a change of jurisdiction and we're going to the higher court and you're going to answer the questions on whether or not what was done was legal or not and how it affects your case. Now, if they started with a Fourth Amendment violation with no warrant, no court order, or anything else in your home, that is a clear cut or, imminent danger. It's a clear cut case. You know why? Because the federal judge looks at it, at your complaint, looks at the case law, then looks over at your state attorney or CPS attorney. It doesn't matter who it is, or civil attorney, or any of them. Whoever's against you, provide the fucking documents. Where's the documents? Now, one of two things is going to happen. Either they're going to forge the documents and send them in, which that's also an issue of a case now because they have hidden discovery on you. They've hidden evidence. They were supposed to produce that. Yeah, that's right, that they had a right to come into your home. CPS or the state was required to present to the judge they had a lawful right to even start the investigation in the home, and they don't. They did an unconstitutional entry then, and that's under the color of law. But guess what? Fruit from a poisonous tree doctrine automatically kicks in when you have a constitutional rights violation. Anything after that, why? Because it's a federal felony to violate someone's constitutional rights, especially when you're serving as an actor, elected or appointed official for any government, whether it's state or federal. That is a felony crime. And for a judge to do it, now people say, well, why doesn't my judge do it? Hold your judge accountable. Your magistrate, you want to take them out? Real simple. That Fourth Amendment violation was right before you, judge. Why? Because it's in your CPS report. They have to type it, right? He says he entered the home, he or she entered the home, right? It's right in front of you, right? Where's the warrant or court order? Can you produce them right now? Nope. Nothing documented in there about an imminent danger calling the cops in, anything like that. Nothing's on that report that they're mandatorily supposed to have, not only by the state, but to even get a dime of federal funding in that office, they must comply with that rule, which
Watch
means
this.
if they didn't, they committed Social Security fraud. Now what? What you got, man?
Oh, since you just said that, I'm about to put them. I just put my wanted criminal attorney on fucking federal warning. Now I'm about to put the other one on federal warning.
It's real simple. And then if your case doesn't move anymore, or once you file that federal, they cannot do anything. They've lost jurisdiction and power. Your state has. Your case must freeze until the upper court makes a decision, which we already know, especially if you quote the case law, the federal case law about it, the judge is going to agree. But you have to ask the right questions in the federal court when you do the change of jurisdiction, because most of the time they're just going to, you'll never see a courtroom. The federal judge is simply going to review what you've put in there with specific questions on how and why. That if somebody enters illegal with no warrant, no court order, and no thing, any of this is in evidence, and has entered the home illegally and unconstitutionally, and that's where all this started. Does fruit from a poisonous tree apply to both criminal and civil cases? And that judge will answer you back. Absolutely, it does. Therefore, your case is dismissed 100% right then and there. Don't matter what the state says, the federal judge says you must. Well, Your Honor, if that's the case, everything's not admissible in court. That means everything you have, including his entry in his report, is not allowed to be entered in evidence, Your Honor, according to that federal ruling on my case specifically. So what argument does the state have? All of a sudden, there's no argument. Everything's dead. Criminal case, civil case, this and that. It's done. Right away, it's snuffed out. And there ain't a damn thing they can do about it. They continue to pursue. Then you call the federal judge. And then the federal judge sends out the U.S. Marshals and places them all under arrest. That's exactly what happens. Because they have now just committed a federal felony by not following those orders. That's exactly the way it works. But they don't want you to know about that. Change your jurisdiction. Have the arguments in the right courtroom. That's exactly what Pam Bondi is going after. And she even quoted today within that thing, if you read that, goes back into the full one on that, Vinny. She talks again about the SEC versus Jarsky case. Wait, everybody told me I was full of shit, Vinny. That doesn't deal with those administrative judge and family judges. But funny, now the DOJ agrees with me. Pam Bondi agrees with me that, all of those, the FBI agrees now. Now they're not standing up for them. There's no protection. Oh, it's game on. Sucks to be you. Now what? What are you going to do? If you're right, I'm lying. I'm lying all the way that the DOJ printed what they printed. Okay. That's why SEC versus Jarsky specifically said it's one of the best renditions of the Seventh Amendment to clarify what the Seventh Amendment is for any judge or anything. Go to that case and read the full thing, because it specifically says any administrative judge that has the power to invoke civil penalties, and I'm quoting from that case law, then they are required to have a trial by jury. And this is why, and lists several pages of Seventh Amendment dissertation of absolutely why it qualifies with zero gray area. In other words, and that's retroactive. That means every case that you've ever had with CPS, now 20 years ago, 30 years ago, doesn't matter. It still applies because deprivation of rights has no statute of limitation. It means you can file from something 20 years ago. Hey, they entered my house illegally and took my kids 20 years ago. Now they're 18. Can I sue them? Hell yeah, you can. And you go back and clear up your case too. file. Hey, at any given time, there's cases civilly and criminally. 20 years, 30 years down the road, they're doing it now with DNA and all the other stuff they did. How many cases were overturned when they reviewed the evidence on some of the cases? Nope, not that person. Wasn't his baby. Nope, didn't commit that murder and all those rapes. But the man's been in prison for 18 years. Oh, we're just going to let him go. Sorry about that. That's fucked up. And if you get caught up in that system, let me tell you something. That's nasty, because now you have 18 years of your life and they pay you shit when they fuck up. If you get out, trust me. I've heard, and once again, as a journalist here, we're taking on that press thing. Absolutely, yes. Hearing those stories, you'd be amazed at some of the things we hear and the horror stories. And when you think yours is so bad, somebody else has got it fucking worse and just in a different way.
Well, see,
and sometimes they reverse it.
I've been following the story out of the Oklahoma one with the foster
that one too.
Out there.
Oh, they're getting these foster families like left and right.
Yeah, but here's the fucking kicker. Today I saw that the foster parents challenged jurisdiction and is getting the case dismissed.
Did you see also that word that they came up with in there? Reactive detachment syndrome.
Yeah.
That's what I've been looking up.
New psychological. Yeah. It's fresh off the books. And it's psychological. You got to understand, that's what I keep telling people. Psychology is a soft science because no two people are exactly the same.
Right.
You could put two people in the same circumstance and have two different outcomes. Same scenarios all through life, and they're going to make different choices. It's how we were beautifully and wonderfully and originally made. So why does CPS get to come in and redefine? I'm going to use these words. Under God's law has created. How can you summarize everything? Because it's a very violation of God's law to say that all children are this or this is the umbrella. I mean, you're not going to remove any form or all forms of abuse. This whole raising your kid in a bubble bullshit is horseshit.
I just found it.
What's that?
What that is?
What's the word? What's the definition?
Reactive attachment disorder is a rare but serious condition in which an infant or young child doesn't establish healthy attachment with parents or caregiver.
Yep.
Reactive attachment disorder may develop if the child's basic need for comfort, affection, and nutrition aren't met, and loving, caring, and stable attachment with others are not established.
Well, I did.
We need to insert that to our fucking.
I said that lasts till at least the age of 11, right? Like at least. I mean,
well, listen, they've got to put labels and things on this. The reason they have to label it, and a lot of times we didn't. We just called it growing up. Now they've got to have a label for every damn thing. Why do they have to have a label for everything? Because it's now they have a legal term for it. Now they can take you to court for it. Every little thing. They'll multi-describe all new words, everything else, just to get you in there. Welcome to the world of legalese.
Yes, sir. Oh, yes.
And now they're playing that game of the psychological stuff because, Darren, did you know now they have U.S. government approved psychological theories?
I do not.
Stamped right at the top. Yep, stamped right at the top. This psychological viewpoint is approved by the United States government now on all their forms.
Oh, it's confusing.
So now they're regulating mental health.
What's up, Jennifer?
We start paying attention, man. We got to pay attention to what they're doing.
It even has the risk factors.
Oh, those are fun to read. Go ahead, Vinny.
Risk factors of development reactive attachment disorder from severe social and emotional neglect or lack of opportunity to develop stable attachment may increase in child who are examples. Living in a children's home or other institution, frequently change foster care homes or caregivers, have parents who have several mental health problems, criminal behavior, or substance abuse that impairs their parenting, have prolonged separation from parents or other caregivers due to repeat out-of-home replacement, hospitals, or death or a primary caregiver. However, most children who are severely neglected don't develop reactive attachment disorders.
So what you're trying to say, what that whole thing is trying to say, is when a child does not have a sense of something of family and some sense of love and safety, that child is permanently damaged beyond repair.
Yep.
Because it cannot connect with the basic thing it's done, that now you're causing a mental shift or break that it will never connect with the human race nor trust anybody or anything. Because everything is a fight or flight. They never get out of that mode. That is absolutely 100% mental abuse. So when CPS does this shit to families and rip these, listen here, I'm going to be dead honest with you. Half the stuff we grew up with, they probably, CPS would have come in and arrested 90% of them, but they didn't. We got our asses whooped. Even in public school, we got our asses whooped. You know what it did? It made us better people. But you call that abuse. We'll see it. And see, that's part of the brain's development. We have to develop that part of the brain. They're trying to fuck with your children's mental brain and reprogram it. They are trying to replace the family and reprogram your child. Why? What does that make too when you have those type of things, Vinny? I'll make a further connection from you based off of that study. You know where that study came out of with that terminology? The FBI. You know which one? The same one they do the Criminal Minds Division, as the show does. They have found out
that it was true.
They found out that when this was done to children like this as a product of society, these are your serial killers and your serial rapists and all these other things. These are a big, well-known catalyst and a perfect environment to create serial killers. It's documented through the FBI already has all this shit and traced it back, and it got into a book. And somebody says, well, how do I make the perfect killers? Or how do I create chaos in the earth? I create a bunch of serial killers. How do you do that? Destroy the family. Isolate a child to never feel love.
Remove them, right.
Bounce them around to foster home to foster home. Yep. You want to hear it? Go read some of the autobiographies of some of the serial killers that are out there. John Wayne Gacy, some of the other things in their childhood and the other things.
Jeffrey Dahmer.
Right there, Dahmer, all of them. The crazies through time, the Davidian cult, half the other things and the shit that they come up with. Some of them, here's the beautiful thing they're not going to tell you. That's why churches reach out so much to people during crisis moments. Why? Because they think of it, it's a positive thing other than you going on a killing spree. Here, put all your stuffs on here or this and that. Whatever it takes for you. Now, does that say that I don't believe in a creator? No, I believe in a creator. I just don't believe in my personal aspect of organized religion, because it doesn't make sense, because the actual thing of organized religion, in my opinion, it's kind of like it says it right in there in the book. Don't follow men, follow this. Hey, do this, not that. But 90% of your institutions are what? Where do you spend most of your time? Teachings of Paul and this, that. Funny, I remember reading the book and it's saying the words in red, follow me, no man anything else. I mean, that's where I have a lot of problem with these institutions. But now let's weaponize that thing. And this is the other problem I got. You got a 501c. You got a 501c with the religious institutions. Who's running most of these foster homes, people? I'm about to flip you the fuck out. Go look up your religion. If you're in a church, Lutheran, Catholic, this and that, go see how many foster homes and children's homes that they take and fucking run. And tell me your religion your hands are not bloody and dirty. Those children are on your hands.
What's a rad? Herbert asked what a rad is.
Unit of measurement for radiation. How many rads?
Herbert, you should know this being on the police force.
And guys, I'm talking about some deep exposure that even a lot of people are saying religious institutions are being run like businesses.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm just putting this together and putting it out there for you to make these connections on whether or not in your own things, look into it. Ask some questions. I mean, because I'll be honest with you. And here's the thing, guys. Darren, let me ask you this, and Vinny, and let me ask you this serious question. With what you guys are going through, do you think you could have stepped foot in a church, religious organization? What do you think would have happened when all of this stuff came piling down upon you?
They would run.
Do you think they would have been there for you, or would they have just run you off and kicked you off and made their decision and wanted nothing affiliated with you?
I know that for a fact.
Gone.
They tell you get that. They tell you get the hell out of their
See you
church.
later, bye.
Except here's the difference. Because yes, I believe in a higher power, but I am Wiccan.
Well, once again, everybody has different influence in their beliefs. Welcome to America. But my point is something's just not right, people. There's too much of greed and some of the other things. I mean, it was talked about. Where did all this thing of pedophilia start coming out first?
Churches.
Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, how? Because they were running orphanages. And they were run this. It's all over.
My mom could tell you about that shit.
Oh.
She was in
Salvation Army too. A couple states under
That's right.
on the Salvation Army.
That's Jen Babson right there.
Yep.
Guys, the point is leave our fucking kids alone.
Yep.
Somebody's being hurt, put the fucking cuffs on me and put me before criminal court. But other than that, fuck off.
Yep.
Why? Because that's what the Constitution says. You don't have the right to constantly run me down and do this and do that and make up shit and all this other stuff. It's unconstitutional. It's unconstitutional what you're doing in all these courts. Why do you think SEC versus Jarsky was so instrumental of correcting things? And now all the DOJ is saying we're standing by that fucking ruling and then we're coming after you for that shit you've been doing. That's exactly what it was.
So since you guys were just touching on that one subject, because we got, I don't know how much time we got left, but I want to touch on something with that Salvation Army stuff. Is what parents don't realize, and they've been doing it for fucking years, is that little red pot is funding the foster care system that they're running.
Social Security Act of 1935 has got multiple things they are tapping off and leeching off of it to get paid or reimbursed for federal thing. Even to the point they're saying that, you know, the collection of things, this, that, the administrator, they're as soon as you go through anything with CPS, they want you through the child support system. Why? Because they can double dip. Real simple. With no jury trial, no nothing. You don't have, we want. Well, I didn't surrender my kid. I didn't do this. They don't care because it's money. It fuels all the corrupt, lazy motherfuckers that don't want to get a real fucking job, that doesn't feel like what it now. Not saying what they do is not important, but when they're doing shit like this, it makes your job fucking useless. Fucking useless when this is all you turn out in every state. It's disgusting. There's no need for you. And that's exactly what they're saying in the Trump administration of going, that's exactly what we're going after. We're going to clear house. And you have overstepped your bounds to where you thought you were big boy court. Funny how those administrative judges, they were never really called that. And they didn't call themselves judges, this and that they actually name themselves judges in the state. How fucking corrupt is that shit? Let me just call myself or label myself that. You're not a judge. Let me tell you something. We've already went over that in another show. There's not been a judge around for, this and that, since that particular year. We've gone through that. But watching these foster people, and this isn't the first state that's going to happen. These news services are waking the fuck up. And if you'll notice, they're not all big name Channel 5, Channel this and that, because those stories were broke by what? Platforms just like this, podcasts, small news stations.
So Darren, to what we played earlier with Rep. Laura Libby, Wessel for Maine governor posted out 39 minutes ago. Maine free speech is under attack. This is unacceptable.
Yeah, of course it is. They just banned that girl. They just banned her from the Senate floor.
Yeah. And let alone that's interfering with an elected official.
Right. It's all bullshit, but it's coming to a close. It's coming to a thing. What did you got for last words, Gunner?
Last words. It's time to get back to the Constitution. Hold on, because here we go. And on top of that, I'm sure it's not going to be long. This show right here, on top of the show Gunning for CPS on Sunday nights, you're going to see some changes once we get some of our stuff filed, because it's going to be huge, baby.
Yep. Stay tuned, people. What you got, Manny?
I just want to say this, they can kick me while I'm down, but every time I've gotten back up. So now it's time to kick them where they hurt, right in their fucking gonads.
All right. Yeah. I'm with Vinny. Go gonads, man. All right. I'm the CPS
to the nads.
We're out of here. Yeah. To the nads.
To the nads. Off to the nads.
Go get them nads, everybody.
Let's go. The world getting crazy, baby, chill. Don't medicate, just meditate. You waking up now, well, baby, you hella late. Educate, look at what's going on, let it resonate, accelerate. Find your inner hunger like you never ate. Agenda is to push the hate. Separate and segregate, don't celebrate. Quite yet the storm is coming, cue for heaven's sake. Violence that they demonstrate, instigate and penetrate the values of our country, and our God is what they desecrate. My fighters ain't no featherweight, pulling out the seams of the fabric that they fabricate. They feed us lies, manipulate, intimidate, do fear and force, forcing us to sit and wait till we come together, congregate, then we liberate. Praying that you give me strength to find some love amongst the hate. Marching on the streets of blood till I see the golden gates. Troubadour, troubled souls, one of God's servants. Blades out, cut the grass till we see the serpents.
One day I hope you see the truth. This puppet show, it stays on because of you fools. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh God, come back home. This crazy world is filled with liars and abusers. We need you now before we're too far gone. I hope one day they finally see the truth. God, we need you now.
I know the truth is hard to swallow, just digest it. Suspected something's going on, chose to just neglect it. Deflected by some breaking news, we just accept it. Expected just to fall in line and follow their perspective. Don't question their objective, but I got a lot of questions. How these kids molested, but nobody's been arrested. Read it in the testament, these children are protected. So I'm fighting all these terrorists, both foreign and domestic. Refuse to be directed, lying not a sheep. Only kneel to my God, so I'm dying on my feet. Silence when we speak, but there's violence in the street. I've been rolling with the punches, I can't take it on the cheap. Drink from a glass half full, I'm optimistic. People are sadistic, so vicious and malicious. Praying for assistance to overcome opposition. No, I'm gonna start resisting, and then I'll pray for forgiveness.
One day I hope you see the truth. This puppet show, it stays on because of you fools. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh God, come back home. This crazy world is filled with liars and abusers. We need you now before we're too far gone. I hope one day they finally see the truth. God, we need you now. We need you now. We need you now. One day, one day, one day, I hope you see the truth. This puppet show, it stays on because of you fools. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh God, come back home. This crazy world is filled with liars and abusers. We need you now before we're too far gone. I hope one day they finally see the truth. God, we need you now.